Hi, this is Meg Olson from Network. Welcome. If you could just stand by for a minute or two, we'll be with you shortly. Thank you. All right. I think we're good. Oh, okay. All right. Good afternoon. Welcome. This is Meg Olson from Network. I want to thank you so much for joining us today for this really important webinar on family separation and an update on immigration. Today, we have joining with us Sister Simone Campbell, our Executive Director here at Network, Sana Rizvi, who's a Government Relations Associate, and Laura Peralta Schulte, who's a Government Relations Advocate. If you are on the webinar, you do have the ability to type in a question during the entire webinar in the chat box, and we will be monitoring those closely and we'll have a chance to answer them. So if you're on the webinar, you'll have a chance you have a chat box and you can type in your question during the webinar and we'll be monitoring them. We'll have plenty of time at the end of the webinar to answer them. If you have dialed in on the 712 number, during the question time, we will unmute you and you will have a chance to ask your questions over the phone. So we have lots of people on this webinar today, but we're going to make it work. So today, of course, we'll be discussing the upcoming immigration votes on DACA, and Sana will talk to us about that. And we'll also have the administration's family separation policy. Just a reminder, you can type in your questions throughout. But first, I'm going to hand it over to Sister Simone.
Thanks, Meg. I wanted to take just a moment to convene us in our shared concern, our shared terror for what is happening in our nation. And my hunch is that you're quite like us here at Network, where we get tears in our eyes as we worry about what is happening with our immigrant brothers and sisters. I think it's really important for us to not get hardened or desensitized to this worry. And it is possible to try to hide from it and pretend it's not going on, or sometimes I deal with it just as trying to think strategically. But what I came to know this morning as I was praying over this issue is that it's with broken hearts, as I always say, that we can move forward. So thank you for getting on this call. Let our hearts be broken together, because that's the sign of where the Spirit is moving among us, and it moves us to action where we will not be stopped. And that's what this situation takes. We need all of us to work together to make real change happen, to heal our nation and heal our brothers and sisters who are being so dehumanized in this awful process. So, my friends, let us take a deep breath together. Let us acknowledge the tears in our eyes, but let's not be deterred by it, because it is in that struggle and suffering that we know our commitment, our faith is anchored. And coming from the Christian scriptures, we know that Jesus' promise is, out of death comes life, out of suffering comes joy. So let's work on this together, because I'll tell you, this week and in the weeks coming, we've got a lot of work to do. We're counting on you. And so thank you very much for coming on this call, for being involved, and let us be community that welcomes the stranger. We can do this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Simone. I'm going to pass it over to Sana, who's going to talk to us about the upcoming legislation that impacts DACA and DACA recipients and Dreamers and their families.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, Meg and Sister Simone, for leading us up to this. Let's kind of start by talking about the state of play on the DACA situation. DACA recipients are in limbo. Some of them have lost their status already. Many of them have already lost their status. Dreamers have been detained, and indeed, they've been deported as well. After the March 5th deadline, which the president had for closing out the DACA program, we saw a lot of courts. We saw 2 court injunctions that put DACA in place and kept their protections in place. So people who, at the time of March 5th, were still within the program and had not had their DACA expire, they remain with their protections, but because it's in the courts, it's wrapped up in the courts, we're seeing more and more court cases. This is not a permanent solution. So that's where the urgency for a permanent solution comes in, and what we've been working months and months for. Well, in February, we saw that the Senate had an opportunity to pass some sort of DACA solution. They failed, and now the House is set to vote on 2 immigration bills. And before we kind of go into what those bills look like, I want to give a brief context into what is happening in the House right now. So, 4 months, we have been trying to push the House for a solution and pushing the urgency of a permanent solution. Well, it is finally being brought up. A bill is finally being brought up because of House politics and the election, of course. So which party is in power right now? The Republican Party. So their politics matter right now most. What we're seeing happening in the Republican Party is that there is the moderate House Republicans who have really tough elections coming up and are feeling the heat to do from their constituents, like you, thank you, to do something for DACA recipients. The Speaker of the House and the Republican leadership, however, are totally against bringing up anything on immigration because that really splits up the party. It is not an issue that the party really unifies behind right now, but because these House moderates were really pushing for some sort of solution and their constituents were really pushing them for something, they decided to do something which enables them to bring an immigration bill to the floor without the Speaker's approval. So what we saw happen was a small number of House Republican moderates decided to file a discharge petition. This is the only way to get something to the floor for a vote without the Speaker. To get a discharge petition submitted, you need 218 votes. So for the past couple of weeks, we've been trying to get to that number, that golden number, 218. Well, unfortunately, last week we saw that the discharge petition failed with 216, so just too shy of 218. And that discharge petition would have enabled 4 immigration bills to go to the floor, 2 of which we really supported, Network really supported. Unfortunately, because of the discharge petition failing, we no longer get that. So why did the discharge petition fail? It failed because the Speaker and Republican leadership decided discharge petition makes the party look weak. We cannot allow the discharge petition to go through. So they sat down with the moderate House Republicans and they sat down with the House Freedom Caucus, which is a group of about 30 to 40 very hardline conservative Republicans that do not vote in favor of positive immigration bills. So they decided together that they would kill the discharge petition by, kill is a very harsh word, but they would stop the discharge petition by promising 2 immigration bill votes. So now we kind of go into what these bills will look like and why this is not a good step for immigration and for DACA recipients. So this is a Republican-only action, basically. What is happening is the Speaker of the House has promised a vote on, 1, the Representative Goodlatte's Securing America's Future Act. And the second vote that will happen is what the Speaker is calling a compromise bill, but we will be calling the Ryan bill. It is a Republican-only bill. So before I go on to explain what both the bills kind of look like, I just want to say that the moderates are allowing this to happen because what they want is they want to be able to go into elections saying we did get a vote on some kind of immigration bill. But of course, the most important to us is a vote on a compassionate solution and the passage of a compassionate permanent solution for DACA recipients. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of talk about the 2 bills that we are looking at for a vote potentially this week, perhaps maybe even as soon as Wednesday. So we'll start off by talking about the Goodlatte bill. We call it this colloquially because it was brought forward by Representative Goodlatte, who is part of the House Freedom Caucus, very hardline conservative, not pro-immigration at all. His bill is called the Securing America's Future Act. It has no pathway to citizenship for Dreamers. It will allow either a 3-year or a 6-year renewal period for DACA, which will continue perhaps forever. We don't know. There's no pathway to citizenship. It does allow for wall funding of at $25 billion. It allocates that much money for the wall. It criminalizes all non-citizens, and it significantly cuts family visas. So those are just like the top line provisions of what we're looking at. This bill is 414 pages, and almost every line in it is very anti-immigrant, does not have a solution for Dreamers. This is not, for DACA recipients, this is not what we're looking at. It eviscerates legal immigration and completely tries to overhaul the process. And then, so that's what we're looking at for the Goodlatte bill. The only positive thing looking at this vote going forward is that we believe that the Republicans do not have enough votes for this bill to pass. But we will still ask members to vote against it. Obviously, we push against it very, very hard. Now we go on to sort of talk about the top lines for the compromise bill, which is, of course, we're calling that the Ryan bill. It is not a compromise because it is Republican only. No Democrats were asked to come to that table for that. And that bill is also not a solution for Dreamers. It is only being called one by Republicans. It is a very complicated bill. It has a very complicated point-based system for Dreamers to get to a pathway to citizenship. So it starts off with a 6-year renewal period for them, and then it makes significant cuts to family visas and diversity visas, and then reallocates those visas for potential merit earners of the DACA population. So a very small amount of the DACA populations will be able to get some sort of pathway or some sort of access to green cards with that. This is not what we're looking for. So that's the portion of the bill that has to deal with DACA and Dreamers. Then we go on to see that the bill includes wall funding at $25 billion. We also see significant changes to the asylum system, significant changes to TVPRA, so the asylum system for unaccompanied children, and significant cuts to family visas. So things like that we are, of course, completely against. Both these bills try to completely overhaul the current system that exists. Both bills will increase children detention and will make family separation worse, or will not make, and will make significant changes to just the current system that has been helping our immigrants. So we are against both these bills, and then Meg will talk a little bit about what our asks will be.
Yeah, thanks, Sana. Thank you for that explanation. Can you just remind us what TVPRA is?
Yeah, TVPRA was put in place by, I think it was the Bush administration, to sort of help unaccompanied minors and make sure that we are not sending them back to the conditions that they came from. So this Ryan bill will actually allow the administration to send these children back to unaccompanied children back to where they were coming from, and kind of lift those protections that were in place. It's the Traffic Victims Protection Act.
Thanks. I know here in DC we have lots of jargon, and it's been a while since we've talked about that. I just want to remind everyone, Sana just went through a lot of information about this upcoming vote. So if you have any questions, please type into your chat box. And those of you who dialed into the 712 number, because I know we have close to 200 people at this point, we will unmute at the end after Laura talks. We'll have about 20 minutes of questions. So I really hope if you have any, please send them our way. But before we move on to Laura, yes, so Sana just talked about the Goodlatte bill and the Ryan bill, and said that, we are expecting a vote this week, as early as Wednesday. So we are urging all members to reject both the Goodlatte bill and the Ryan compromise bill. We know, as Sana said, that they both dramatically change our immigration system. Even if they do offer some protections to Dreamers, they damage families, immigration, family sponsorship, and access to asylum. Network is sending out an action alert tonight. It will be a call-in for tomorrow, and just to your member's office. And what we're asking for, and if you're familiar with our call-ins, we give you all of the text to say, but we are asking that they reject both bills and that any solution for Dreamers has to be bipartisan. It has to include a pathway to citizenship, and it cannot compromise that. That pathway cannot be at the expense of the rest of our immigrant sisters and brothers. We cannot cut family immigration or TVPRA or anything like that. So once again, just make sure, be on the lookout for your email, or some of you I know are text alert. You will receive that action alert tonight for the call-in. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Laura now to talk about family separation.
Thank you, Meg. In terms of the issue of family separation, I would bet it is something that is definitely on your mind, as Simone indicated up front. There are a couple of things that I just want to be really clear, and then I want to talk to you all about some of the steps that the administration is taking, just to put it in context. The first thing I'd just like to say is that, this issue of family separation is all about choice. And it's all about the administration's choices. So there has been a lot of disinformation about what the cause of this agony is, but it is important to remember that the issues that I'm going to describe all emanate from what the administration has decided to do to our asylum system. I think it's very important to call this what it is. This is immoral. We have a practice that's going on right now where children are being separated from their parents, and that really violates all of our religious principles, as well as just our principles that are ingrained in the Constitution about dignity. And so, this is really a crisis point of the administration's making. In terms of what we know right now that over 3,000 children, that is the latest report in terms of numbers that we're getting, that 3,000 children have been removed, separated from their parents. We also know that when you separate a baby from his mother or his father, that the child and parents experience tremendous and lasting trauma. And so we pray for their well-being as we discuss, the issues that are pending. There are really three different strands of action that the government has taken that is driving the anguish that we're seeing at the border and generally throughout the asylum system. There was a case that I'd like to just briefly talk about, decided recently by the Attorney General, that is extremely important. There is, as you've been likely reading, a new zero tolerance policy that the administration is implementing. And finally, something that I just want to put on your radar screen, there is a new memorandum of understanding that has been reached between the Office of Refugee Resettlement and the Department of Homeland Security, which over time is going to cause even more problems for kids that are in detention. So let me start with the issue of one of the recent decisions by our Attorney General. This is the matter of AB, and let me give you a little bit of a fact pattern just to kind of premise so you can understand where this administration is coming from. So there was a woman that arrived in the United States and was being screened in applying for asylum based on the credible fear of prosecution. She was from El Salvador, based on some very, very distressing instances of violence she had received at the hands of her husband. There was a evidence she put forward that she was literally set on fire at one point by her husband. She had endured this deep violence, and after trying to seek protection in El Salvador, ended up coming up to the United States to seek protection. It was very odd, this incident, because normally the way that the system works is it makes its way through the court channels. But maybe not surprisingly, this case was picked up by Attorney General Sessions. He self-referred this case for adjudication. And in the findings of that decision, what he did is he reversed what was really a very solid practice in terms of asylum protections for victims of domestic violence and for other persecution, so that we are now in a situation as a result that thousands of women, including many of the women that are currently being detained after having their kids taken away from them, they are really likely in a very poor position, because the intent was to shut down the ability of people who are suffering from domestic violence or from gang violence to even be able to access the asylum system. So this specific issue was one where he reached in looking for a case to really draw a conclusion that people who are suffering with these very, very traumatic systems would not have access to our asylum system. The next policy that the administration moved forward with was really the issue that has been front and center in the issue of the travesty going down at our border. Again, you have Attorney General Jeff Sessions in this point working in conjunction with the head of ICE, who recently announced that the Trump administration would adopt a zero-tolerance policy toward anyone caught crossing into the U.S. by Border Patrol. All border crossers under this new system are referred to the Department of Justice, and everyone referred is to be prosecuted for the misdemeanor of illegal entry. So what does this mean in English? What it means is that everyone who is seeking asylum, including parents who have entered into the U.S., are separated because of the parents being charged with illegal crossing. It is important to remember, and this has been really lost in the news, that seeking asylum is a legal act. That is not an illegal act. And so what we are in the situation is the government basically criminalizing folks seeking asylum, and then what they do is the children are at that point treated as unaccompanied minors. And that is the justification for them to be taken away from their parents. In theory, unaccompanied kids are sent to the Office of Refugee Resettlement within 72 hours of being detained. They are kept in government facilities or short-term foster care for days or weeks, while the Office of Refugee Resettlement tries to identify their nearest relative who can take care of the kids while the case is being moved forward. The problem is, right now, there are many problems, but one of the most important problems is that system is broken. You know, they are overwhelmed, and as you saw from, or as you're likely seeing in the newspaper, you have kids that are living in reconverted Home Depots by the border, sleeping on floors, not having access to just those things that they need to live. Most importantly, they are separated from their parents, and their parents are often unable to find out where they are. They are unable to communicate with each other, and the method by which this separation occurring is particularly heinous, as there are story upon stories about a mother who is breastfeeding and their child is taken away from them during that act, or kids that are told to that they will be taking a shower, and the parents are being told that they will see their kids, and that has not been the case. So the immorality of this system is deeply concerning, and we are happy to answer any questions about that. I think the final thing, again, something that is just coming from the administration, is a little known thing, but something, God bless you, that makes it more difficult going forward. And it has everything to do with sharing of information. So there was a new agreement reached between the Office of Refugee Resettlement and the Department of Homeland Security for how they will treat kids, and particularly how they will place kids once they are setting to get them out of the system. Kind of the bright lines here is that under this memorandum of understanding, once again, the administration is confusing the issue of protection of children with immigration enforcement. So for the first time, the department that is charged with child welfare will be charged with providing information about families and about folks who these kids could be placed with, including names, birth dates, addresses, fingerprints, biometric information. The long and short of this is that providers are deeply, deeply concerned that given this new relationship between a child care practice and an enforcement practice, that what it's going to lead to is a lot of undocumented families fearful to come forward to sponsor their kids, which puts them at great risk for exploitation and trafficking. They are afraid that what is going to happen is kids are going to be stuck in the system for a much greater period of time. And unfortunately, for those children with no sponsors willing to come forward, they will be seeking indefinite detention, which will lead to child abandonment and, frankly, the inability to process valid protection claims, which puts kids at risk of being delivered to the homes that they were trying to escape from. So, Meg, we really have multitudes of issues that the administration is doing unilaterally to really shut down the asylum process and make it as difficult as possible for parents to stay with their kids.
Yes. Whoops, sorry about that. All right. So, as Laura said, all these different ways that the administration is harming children and families right now. We definitely have some asks for you. We need to keep up this steady drumbeat of moral outrage, both in the media and calling members in district, okay, your district offices. We really want to make a lot of noise out in the field, right? And even remember, you know, some of your smaller in-district offices, if they get 5, 10 phone calls about this, that's a big deal. So, so be sure to call. You can also write letters to the editor, right? Every time we see a story, and it's been in the news so much, submit an LTE or respond to one. Check the LTEs. If somebody's actually writing in support of anything that's happening, talk back, write back. Okay, let's get the dialogue going in our local papers. When you call your in-district office or write an LTE or even an op-ed, you want to ask members of Congress to support bills that keep families together. A bill that we really like is Senate Bill 3036. It's actually called the Keep Families Together Act. Who's the sponsor? Do you know?
Dianne Feinstein.
Oh, this is Dianne Feinstein's bill. I think we have 48 Democrats on it right now, so we need to keep that pressure up. Missouri, I saw, if anyone is on, I saw that your own Senator Claire McCaskill did tweet out that she was going to sign on. I think that was thanks to you all. I saw a lot of action this past week about that. So this bill mandates an end to family separation at the border. If you're on social media, yes, Laura's reminding me this needs Republicans. So call, just especially your Republican senators. This is a moral crisis and they know better. They know that it is wrong that we're doing this. So just keep up that pressure, keep up that drumbeat. If you're on social media, right, we see lots of hashtags out there, but tell Congress families belong together. It's simple. We know this. We also found out today that there's going to be a National Day of Action on June 30th, all across the country, rallies, vigils. As that information is rolling out, I know that Sana and Laura will be hearing even more about it tonight on a phone call. Network will let you know, and I'm sure there'll be websites that have, we've seen these clickable maps that'll say like where it is in your area, and I'm sure there'll be toolkits for if you want to have one, right, in some of these smaller towns, smaller areas, get one started. But really before June 30th, and even I'm sure after June 30th, just keep up that drumbeat. Call in district, call your senators to support Senate Bill 3036. All right, I know we have a lot of questions that came through. Some folks even emailed us preemptively, knowing that we get a lot during the webinar, so thank you. I'm going to try and answer these. We do have a little repetition, so, and then we're also, for those of you who dialed into the 712 number, we're going to unmute you. Because I know that you don't have access to the computer webinar, so we're going to make sure that your questions are asked as well. Please, for those of you on that 712 number, just if you're not asking a question, if you can mute yourself on your phone until you have a chance to ask, that would be great, just so we don't have any background noise. Like I said, we have lots of network members and supporters on this, which is excellent.
Conference unmuted.
Okay, so I'm going to answer a few questions first. I hope this was clear, but I do want to acknowledge Sister Joy emailed us Saturday night and said, President Trump keeps saying that the law requires the separation of children from adults. But the law doesn't allow children to be held in criminal detention centers. So is this true? Since the Trump administration is now prosecuting all illegal border crossers as criminal, even if they're seeking asylum, is it true that they have to remove children from adults? Is this the law?
So what they are raising, and Speaker Ryan also raised this issue, it's called the Flora Settlement, which was a settlement in 1997, and was really the result of over a decade of litigation responding to the U.S. government's detention policy for kids. The agreement set national standards regarding detention, release, and treatment of all children in immigration and detention, and underscored the principle of family immunity. So this is what it did. It requires that juveniles be released from custody without unnecessary delay, in order of preference to the following: their parent, their legal guardian, or an adult relative. But really, the key question was, what is the benefit to the child. It was the best interest of the child standard. Where they can't be released because of a significant issue, juveniles were required or are required to be held in a appropriate setting. But under no way does that mean that there was a
Conference muted.
preference for separating children. So Meg, that is they are misstating the law in terms of the separation of families. The answer is no.
All right. Thanks. This is a question for Sana from Nancy Bordwick. In the Goodlatte bill, can you explain a little more about what you mean by criminalizing all non-citizens?
Sure. There are provisions in the bill. I'm sorry for not explaining this earlier, but there are provisions within that bill that enable immigration officials to deny admission and even deport any non-citizen. So that includes lawful permanent residents, so green card holders, if that official has reason to believe the person is or has ever been a member of a criminal gang. So this bill also expands what is considered a criminal gang. Or if that person, if the official believes that the person has participated in any activity that associates them with such a group, so they can be, somehow related to someone that might be in the group. So it really expands that, which is of course really, really troubling. So that's what I meant by all non.
Okay. And Sana, this is from Virginia Wilkinson. Do we know? Do you have a sense of are either of these bills going to pass this week in the House?
So we really have. So God willing, the Goodlatte bill will fail. Well, God willing, they will both fail. But we know that the Goodlatte bill does not have currently the way that it does not have enough support to pass the House. What we don't know is how much support this Ryan bill has right now. So tomorrow, the Republican leadership will be rallying and counting the votes that they have. And then they also have a meeting with the President Trump, to decide their next steps on these and to see whether or not the Ryan bill has, any opportunity to pass.
Okay, so we're feeling okay about Goodlatte?
We're feeling okay about. We really do expect the Goodlatte bill to fail. The Ryan bill is what we need people to act on, and really, we need people to say no to both bills when they call their members of Congress, but really push the no on the Ryan bill. That's the concern we have, that might have a chance of passing.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And in the House, is there any bipartisan legislation in the works? We've mentioned the Senate bill in our action alert, but is there a House companion bill that might be viable in place of the two bills that are up for a vote this week?
So we're talking about the DACA solution right now? So yes. So we do have, of course, we have always endorsed and will continue to endorse the bipartisan bicameral DREAM Act. But the second solution that we have that had more moderates on than the DREAM Act, the moderate Republicans on, which was the USA Act. So that was the Uniting and Securing America Act. That one was a bill that the Speaker, like the DREAM Act, the Speaker refused to bring to the floor. It's one we would have gotten with the discharge petition, and that's the one we need to keep pushing, because it has border security, which would bring Republicans on board, but it's reasonable. That one is what we would call the compromise bill, right? So that one is the one where where Will Hurd and Pete Aguilar, those representatives who created that bill, they created it in consultation with border communities. So those border communities, they worked with them, and that bill would kind of authorize technology on the border and reports to see what are the border needs of the community and of the people that are working there. But it also had the provisions of the DREAM Act, which we really loved for DACA recipients. So the USA Act is the one that we believe has the votes. We just need Speaker Ryan to bring that bill to the floor.
Okay. But on the call tomorrow,
On the call tomorrow,
just no to
push-
Goodlad,
yeah.
no to Ryan.
yeah, no to Goodlet, no to Ryan. Bring us a solution that is a compassionate, permanent solution for Dreamers.
Yes. So no.
Entry notice off.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Let's see. I think, Laura, this is a question for you. This is from Sister JT Dwyer. It doesn't seem there's a distinction, bless you, between crossing at a point of entry and those coming without inspection. Are those crossing at a point of entry also being prosecuted?
So I should step back. From what we are being told by our folks on the ground, right now it is extremely difficult to cross. That what they have done is basically attempted to shut down the crossing. And so you are finding people who are desperate and seeking ways into the country, swimming and paddling in boats and other systems. And so, but what they are doing, Meg, is they are turning themselves into border patrol, because what they are also trying to do is seek asylum.
Okay.
So what we have with the Trump administration is the Trump administration has purposely chosen to implement the criminal prosecution policy for asylum seekers. And this is really the key, because they are criminalizing that. That is the way that they are able to separate parents from their kids. This is a new policy. This has never been done before, and this is directly responsible for the systematic separation. So I just really want to suggest that, our focus must be on holding the administration accountable. There's a lot of disinformation that they are putting out, including the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security saying that they are not engaged in anything over this on Sunday. But this is what we know. We know that they are criminalizing asylum seekers. We know that they are trying to shut down that system. We know that they are separating parents from their kids, and it is willy-nilly. So we've got kids in jails, and we've got parents in detention centers, much of which are private detention centers where people are making a lot of money, and all the while we have pain and agony. So there's a clear call, a clear moral call here to shut this down, because this is wrong.
Thanks, Laura. I think there's a lot of questions about this in terms of, how is it a law? Is it legal?
Hi,
and
Meg.
Yes.
It's Sister Mary Ellen.
Hi, Sister Mary Ellen.
I work here at Network, and I'm an immigration attorney as well. It is not illegal to come to our border and to request asylum. But as Laura said, they're trying to prevent that. But it's a great question, Sister JTS, because if they do come properly to the border or to the bridge and request asylum, there are certain perils in doing that. That may make your case a little bit more difficult in doing it that way. However, they have not crossed illegally. She makes a fine distinction there. We don't know whether those people are suffering the same thing as the people who have come over and can be charged with this. And just because they came over properly doesn't mean they can't be charged with the crime. Now, maybe when they go to the federal court, they're found innocent of that particular crime. But by then, when they get back to the processing center, their children may already have been moved. So we're not saying everyone's found guilty when they go to federal court. We can't even say that everyone is going to federal court for this crime. However, we're seeing a great influx of people coming, passing the border, whatever way they can pass it, because they need to save their children. So they come over perhaps without over the border or legal fashion. And that's when they do get picked up, when they present themselves. very legally requesting asylum, but if they've passed illegally, that particular crime can be handled in the asylum process. But what they're doing is they're having you go through that criminal proceeding first. And when they do that, that is when the children and the parents get separated.
Okay, thanks, Mary Ellen. I'm hoping. And if you still have questions after this webinar, feel free to email info@networklobby.org. That's just the word info, INFO, @networklobby.org. And Claudia, my team, we will send them to the right Mary Ellen, Laura, or Sana. So I do have a question here that if I signed up for this webinar, will I get the call to action email tonight? Yes, if you got an email alert to sign up for this webinar from Network, you are signed up for our action alerts. So congratulations, you will get it tonight. If you want to do our text system, we have a great mobile text system that a lot of people are getting. We have, definitely over 8,000, probably closer to 12,000, I think. But our communications team will let me know the number. You can text DACA, DACA, to 877-877. So once again, that is DACA, the word DACA, to 877-877. I want to make sure we have time for people on the phone if they have questions.
Conference unmuted.
So, those of you who joined us, thank you for sticking with us on the 712 number, and know that you will still get a recording of this webinar with all of the text tomorrow. So I do have, I just want to make sure, does anyone have questions? And if you do, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And who's speaking, please?
Hi, my name is Camille Griffin from Bon Secours Health System. First of all, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing at Network. I want to elevate the use of the word human rights violations, as Laura said initially in her presentation, and also elevate Cardinal Dolan's remarks that the use of the Bible to defend family separation is not only incorrect, it is wrong. We're following the case of the mother and the child separated while breastfeeding. And I can tell you that currently, you are right, the system is broken. At least the Consul General of Honduras and Texas should have been informed so that they could find placement of this child with some family in Honduras, and that has not been the case. We've been in communication with the ambassador to Honduras and Mexico, as well as the Consul General of Honduras in Atlanta. They were not aware of this situation. They were actually informed by us, and they're trying to do their best to advocate for this mother and hopefully place this child in the hands of loving family members. So I just want to thank you deeply for your work and really elevate this issue as a human rights issue, not a blue or red issue.
Yeah, thank you so much, Camille. And thanks for the work that Bon Secours is doing. We know that you're great partners with Network, and we appreciate all of your work that you're doing.
Meg, if I can just add, if we can be helpful, what we do is we are up on the Hill and meeting with the members of the administration on a daily basis. So I am sure that you and others in our network are doing really essential work, and I thank you for that. Please let us know if we can elevate it on the Hill for you, because that's our job, and that would be a privilege for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And that goes for anyone. If you are working directly with the immigrant community right now, you can send, a report from where you are to info at, because Laura and Sana and our interfaith immigration community, we can bring these stories to lawmakers. I do have a question from Elaine. What legal actions are being taken on behalf of separated children? Is the constitutionality of this being challenged in the courts?
Yeah, ACLU currently is. So they started off with a case involving a Congolese woman who had been separated from her 18-month-old child, and they won that case, thankfully, and she was reunited with her child. And so now they are going ahead, and it's a class action suit, and we will keep you all in the loop if we hear anything about what's going on with that court case. But we do know that that's an action that the ACLU is taking.
Yeah, and my sense is, in so many of these cases, DACA included, what you really, in a lot of ways, if Congress is not going to act, your only recourse is really the courts. So as Sana said, we can keep folks up to date. There will undoubtedly be multiple cases as really lawyers try to strategize where's the best forum to bring the case to get the result that we need.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else calling in on the 712 number that has a question for us?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. This is kind of a nuts and bolts kind of question. I've just come from Mass and I missed most of this. Is this going to be available again, a replay?
Yes, this webinar is being recorded, and if you registered for it, you will receive a recording, and that link is
okay. And
I believe that email will come out tomorrow. It's around this time. It's our system. It'll send out an email within 24 hours. So be on the lookout for that. It'll also be posted on our website, and you can share the link with anyone. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Donna Kengetter. I'm calling from New Mexico, and we really have a lot going on here.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure.
This is a very close to our hearts issue here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for calling, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I so appreciate it.
You're welcome. We have just a recommendation here from Amina Rubin. If you are going to decide to write a letter to the editor, you should call them where the children are being held. If you could call them for-profit prisons as opposed to private prisons. For-profit is a term that definitely, when we hear private prisons, we're associating with luxury, but for-profit, we know that these prisons are definitely valuing profit over people and, are definitely more inhumane. And from former network, Emma Tackey, she has called both of her senators in Idaho. So those of you with really tough senators, be like Emma and call them.
Be like Emma.
Be like Emma. And you can, she describes them as pro-life and pro-family. And she writes, I don't think they will support Senate Bill 3036, but using these words could agitate whatever moral fiber exists inside of them. So thank you, Emma. And Emma is now with Catholics Mobilizing Against the Death Penalty, another great organization. So, any other questions for our friends on the phone?
Yes, this is Guadalupe Magdaleno from Kansas. And I do have a quick question. if you can tell us a little bit about what's going on with the lawsuit. I've just been informed that Kansas Governor Collier has decided to join Texas lawsuit to eliminate DACA. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and what does that mean?
Yeah, we are seeing I think there's about 8 states that are Texas is leading a lawsuit against we're seeing, let me start over. There are DACA recipients are involved in a lot of lawsuits right now. That's part of the reason we need a permanent legislative solution. So we're seeing cases involving DACA recipients, but now the Texas Attorney General, Texas Attorney General, along with I think 8 other state attorney generals, are filing a lawsuit against the government for not shutting down DACA. So we are monitoring that situation as well. I don't think that case has had any significant movement right now. But we could, I can send you some information regarding it if I can reach out to our ACLU colleagues.
I think what their perspective of the ACLU is what the problem with that case is it likely accelerates the call for the Supreme Court ultimately to deal with DACA. We know that will be a likelihood anyways, because we do have cases up in California, or out in California and in New York. So I think, Sana, remind me, in terms of Supreme Court consideration, I think that most of our allies that are engaged in litigation believe that it is strongly possible that it would be taken up at the beginning of the new session in October, with potentially a decision as of early January. So that is the time frame that our colleagues have suggested is likely given all of these cases.
That's right, and I think the ACLU and our members who are involved within that case, they're seeing it as good for them, as good for DACA recipients that this case is really being prolonged right now. I know Texas is really trying to speed up the process of the case itself, so that's kind of working against us. So as long as we can prolong that.
The word that I got today is that they are up to, I believe, 22 or 32 states on board.
Wow, I had not heard that number.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that let us follow up and send you something. Do we have your address?
Yeah, because if she registered.
You should, yes.
Great.
Yeah, we can send a little litigation update on that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Mm-hmm. All right. I want to be mindful of the time. We've been together for an hour, and I know some of you have other webinars to get on today. But thank you so much for joining us. Feel free if in an hour or tomorrow or the next day, if you have any questions, feel free to send them to info@networklobby.org. Be on the lookout for the action alerts that will be coming out tonight to call about the House bills that they're voting on this week. No to Goodlatte and no to the Ryan bill. We want a compassionate DACA solution that also extends protections for family members and asylees. So, and then also, keep calling your senators about getting onto that Feinstein bill, the Keep Families Together Act. So you have lots to do. And I'm sure, in addition to your prayers and, there's a lot of great organizations down at the border that could use support right now. But so we thank you for all that you're doing in this important time. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.